Kandoi, Tamia, Kia Koto, Kia ora, good morning everyone. It's so good to see you all. Can I just say a big thank you to Fran and also to Simon for inviting me here again, 1 year on from when we last caught up. It's also good to see our fantastic Trade Minister Todd McClay in the house. It's good to have you in country, my friend, and appreciate everything that you're doing. I'm not sure whether he's actually got tax status in New Zealand anymore. I think he's away for over 180 days. And I also saw Damien O'Connor here as well. Can I say thank you, Damien, for being here. It's good to see you too. And can I also acknowledge some of the great stalwarts of this really important relationship to us, the New Zealand-US relationship. David Gerenbeck, can I say thank you for your superb leadership at the US Embassy and the work that you do day in, day out. I also want to acknowledge Rosemary Banks. She's been an absolute legend in this relationship and shepherding us through a change of administration. And I want to say, Rosemary, thank you for your service to the country and to Foreign Affairs and to this special relationship. And it's great that we've got Chris Seed heading up there. He's so keen to get there. He's leaving on the 1st of January. As soon as he's got the title, he's away. And we had a good catch up yesterday talking about where we'd like the relationship to go with him as well. And can I just acknowledge Jonathan Mason, Chair of the New Zealand-US Council, and also Mike Hearn from AmCham, both big champions and have been long-term champions actually of this relationship between the two countries for some time. And just to extend a very warm welcome to all of you as the business leaders here today. I know how incredibly hard you all work each and every day to do the work of growing your companies, but also to grow our economy. And in doing that, you're creating jobs and actually creating a more prosperous New Zealand. Look, I think many of you will know that I lived in North America for 8 years, and this New Zealand-US partnership is one that I'm exceptionally enthusiastic about. The US is the most consequential of economies. It is a driving force for global innovation and dynamism. It's a country whose actions, I think, matter like no other, whether you're in Europe or whether you're in the Middle East, or for us right here in the Indo-Pacific region. And the US is a country that New Zealanders are fortunate to be bound to by ties of history and having from visited and from studied and having worked together. And I just wanted to make some very quick framing remarks really about the importance of the relationship between New Zealand and the US, commenting first on the work my government has done with the new Trump administration, before moving on to talk about the work that we do together in the Indo-Pacific, and then I'll round that out by focusing on the trading relationship before I move across and get interrogated by Fran. Look, since I last spoke to you a year ago, President Trump has again come to office and he's made great strides in implementing his agenda. When I spoke to him as President-elect back in November last year, he outlined, I think, a very genuine commitment to peace. He started to deliver on that promise with the deal that his administration brokered just 6 weeks ago in the Middle East, a rather historic turning point to a rather intractable conflict, and he remains very focused in pursuit of peace in Ukraine as well. At home, the President's quest to drive economic growth has seen him delivering on his promise to cut taxes and to deregulate the economy, and he's even kept his promises on policies which I am less enamoured with, like imposing tariffs, which we'll have a little bit to say about later. My government too has been delivering, I think, on its promises. When I spoke to you last year, I committed to investing in building the relationship with the incoming administration so that we have a solid foundation for the work that we need to do together to build out security and prosperity across the region. We've made, I think, great strides in building out those connections, whether it's the many meetings that Winston's had with Marco Rubio, or Judith's work with Pete Hegseth, or Todd's work with Jamieson Greer, or my engagements with President Trump. I think that's the four of us that have been working really hard to make sure we've got deep and broad relationships with this administration. When my government came to office, we immediately went to work on putting in place an upgrade to the capabilities of the New Zealand Defence Force. And in a rapidly sort of deteriorating geostrategic environment, I think it's in New Zealand's interest to build and sustain a defence force that can respond to a range of contingencies, whether that's disasters here at home, whether it's troubles across the Southwest Pacific, or whether it's higher-end demands further afield. And so this year, Judith Collins has delivered our Defence Capability Plan. That will see a doubling in our spending on defence. And those investments will ensure that the NZDF is combat capable, certainly with increased lethal strike capabilities to deter actions counter to our interests. And already we've announced that we will invest more than $2 billion in Seahawk helicopters, bought from, of course, America's Lockheed Martin. And beyond that, there will be opportunities also for Kiwi businesses too. A new emphasis on innovation promises, I think, to unlock technologies for the NZTF, such as uncrewed vehicles and new space technologies, areas where Kiwi companies are actually already trailblazing. And so as a small state wanting to have an outsized impact in the world, we rely on partnerships. And that's why it's absolutely vital the NZTF becomes increasingly interoperable with Australia and with other partners, including the US. So the Defence Capability Plan will enhance that interoperability because it's by collaborating together that our countries help to create the stability and the security, the foundation security that's necessary for the region to flourish. It's also how we get to leverage scale and actually, frankly, avoid inflation in the global defence industry when spends are increasing across the world. Partnership between our two countries extends to the full part we want the US to play in the future of the Indo-Pacific, and that is the engine room of the 21st century. So it actually was really good to see the commitment that President Trump made recently in spending time in our part of the world last month, whether it was at ASEAN engaging in Kuala Lumpur, or certainly with APEC through his visits through Japan and Korea as well. Yeah, I was pleased to meet with him one-on-one and also get to sit down with him with a couple of leaders over dinner to exchange views with him and others about what was happening across our region. And whether it's been about de-escalating tensions between Thailand and Cambodia, denuclearised North Korea, or the importance of stability of the Taiwan Strait, it was good to see the President eager to listen and work with partners to promote a much more prosperous and peaceful region as a result. In a similar vein, St Peters has been very effective, I think, at ensuring that Marco Rubio and his State Department is adequately briefed on what's happening in our Pacific Islands region, whether that's ensuring that tuna treaty funding flows through or finding new ways to partner in the region together. And we will keep the close US-New Zealand security partnership going in some many other areas as well, areas in which we benefit disproportionately, whether it's in the work that we do together sharing intelligence or busting organised criminal gangs that prey on our communities. With the US accounting for a quarter of global GDP, the American economy is an absolutely essential enabler of New Zealand's economic prosperity going forward. The American market is critical for Kiwi exporters with its size, its purchasing power, and its demand for premium goods and services. As the practitioners of this economic relationship, the business leaders that hustle and I think innovate every day to contribute to our respective countries' prosperity, you all know incredibly well what this energised and high-performing trading relationship looks like. At $8 billion, the US remains New Zealand's largest market for New Zealand service exporters. And my government promised to double exports, that's the work that Todd's leading, and so with our goods exports to the US growing by more than 8% in the year to September is a pretty good outcome. In spite of a 15% tariff, I think it's a good contributor to our global trade growth agenda. In fact, I believe our great Kiwi exporters are successfully trading into the US over the tariff because we produce premium food and services that American consumers demand, irrespective of price. Our agri-tech innovators continue to sell into America because they actually produce world-beating products that American ranchers and farmers actually want to get their hands on. And so despite the tariffs, we are determined to continue working with Kiwi exporters as they grow established market segments in the US market. And it was a welcome relief when last month the US rolled back the so-called reciprocal tariffs on beef and kiwi fruit. That is just good news for Kiwi farmers and growers. It represents over $2 billion in exports, or about 30% of our total US trade. And that's great news also, I think, for American consumers. The US market is one of the most valuable for our most exciting exporters, the innovators carving out new niches in sectors like digital and high-tech and space industries. Outstanding success stories like Rocket Lab show companies in these segments succeed best when they're able to partner with American venture capital, American innovation and ideas. And with about a third of applications for the Active Investor Visa Plus Visa program, which we reset in April 1 this year, coming from the US, I see a future in which we'll only see even more opportunity for American capital to partner with Kiwi ingenuity going forward. Now, the fact our exporters are succeeding in the real world doesn't mean the government has forgotten about tariffs. Todd continues to make the case regularly for lower tariffs on New Zealand firms. And we are a country that relishes the gains from trade. US manufactured aircraft connect obviously our islands to each other and to the world, and it's hard certainly to log onto a laptop without being reminded how much US tech entrepreneurship is responsible for the innovations that power up our everyday life. So the Trump administration's concerns that its exporters are treated unfairly, I think, are misplaced, at least insofar as New Zealand is concerned. We are a country that applies an average tariff of just 0.3% on American goods. And little wonder then that US exports to New Zealand have increased by 2/3 again in just the past 4 years. So the Trump administration gets our argument. They recognise that we have a balanced and complementary trading relationship. Indeed, they so often tell us that they think of us as one of the good guys. But at the same time, we are incredibly realistic and expect tariffs to persist as a feature of US trade policy going forward. President Trump was elected to office on a policy and a platform of tariffs, famously saying that tariff was the most beautiful word in the English language. And the President's agenda is clearly one that he obtained a mandate for at the ballot box, even if it is not a set of policies that we as New Zealanders do not buy into. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States will remain, I think, essential to New Zealand's economic prosperity, but my job is to make sure that businesses have options. And since the shock of Britain entering the European Union back in the 1970s, New Zealand's trade strategy has never really relied on just one market alone. And so we will continue to be aggressive in creating global opportunities for all of our exporters. And that's why my government has set an ambitious goal to double exports. And to help achieve that, we're expanding our FTA network with great progress, I think, over just the last 18 months. Since we brought the FTA with Europe into force early, our exports to the EU, to give you a feel for it, are up over 28%. The Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement that Todd and I went to the UAE to sign in January has cleared the way for New Zealand exporters into a $500 billion market that actually imports 90% of its food. We've concluded FTA negotiations now with the Gulf Cooperation Council, and when that agreement enters into force, New Zealand will join a very small number of countries and will be the first major agricultural exporter with preferential access into the GCC market. Plus, we're getting closer and closer, as you'll be aware, and concluding our FTA with India, a negotiation that I launched when I visited in March, and I'm determined we conclude in this parliamentary term, and Todd's working incredibly hard and we'll be back there again next week. So it is in the New Zealand DNA, frankly, to be very externally oriented, and I want to encourage us to continue to do that and to stick by the rules. And that's why we haven't also given up on the global trade order either. Yes, we agree with the US that the WTO is not perfect, and that is why we're prepared to work with others on its reform, and it does need reform. We're not alone, I think, in our staunch commitment to predictable trade underpinned by globally agreed rules. And that's why, at our initiative, the CPTPP trade ministers met with their counterparts from the EU and those from ASEAN in Melbourne last month to discuss what more we can do collectively to reaffirm and buttress the rules-based trading system. Promises made, promises kept. I think by delivering more trade, we create more jobs. More trade means higher wages, and more trade means more opportunity, obviously, for every single New Zealander. So in closing, I just want you to know that this government is laser focused on building out the relationship with the US. It represents a massive opportunity to all of us. And while I could create the conditions for the growth to occur, ultimately though, it will be the ideas and the hard work of the people in this room that will actually generate new dynamism, new growth and new prosperity. So with that, thank you for listening, and we'll look forward to being interviewed by Frank. Thank you very much.